There we go. All right. Well, thanks everybody. Welcome to the second Fireside Chat. And, kind of the purpose of this whole thing was to bring together our community, our amazing donors, and just kind of connect everyone in this time of disconnectedness, in this time of uncertainty. We know that, when the tough gets going, basically Chive Charities and the Chive donors and Chive community step up. And so we wanted to bring everybody together. So with me today, actually at HQ at the Copper Bar, is John Resig, the CEO and co-founder of the Chive and also board member for Chive Charities. How's it going, John?
Live from the Copper Bar. I'm lonely.
Well, I don't know about you, John. I'm actually this is my fireside. This is my fake fireplace. And it just so happens this is the best place for internet in my home. So I was kind of forced down here and the kids are upstairs hiding and trying to be quiet.
How are the kids doing? I'm sure that they're loving having you around 24 hours a day.
Oh, yeah. I mean, team meetings, there's no rules. They're coming in, jumping on my head. Chive Charities will tell you that, they see them more than I do on Zoom calls.
Oh, they're just the best. We give them my love. I miss people around. I'll give you guys, this is what the Chive looks like, completely empty. Oh, watch this. So you guys are the first to see. Leo and I have been doing a bunch of construction around the Chive. So
interesting.
You get to be the first to see some of the stuff. Like behind me, we put up this super big Chive logo.
Nice.
And then the front, when everyone walks into the Chive headquarters, we've recreated. So this is the Chive headquarters. You walk in, there's the reception office and the Chive. And then we've recreated the Chivery. So you walk in, there's a bear. And then the ostrich, the weaponized ostrich, because it has 2 rocket launchers on it.
That was Leo's doing. He said, if we're going to have an ostrich, it's got to have rocket launchers. It's only natural, right?
Yeah, we drink. So yeah, that's the first look. So we've been doing a bunch of little projects around the Chive to make it into more of a feeling of that you've walked into a theme park,
Absolutely. Well, I know a lot of people have gotten the emails. We're probably at capacity now. But if you guys want to take part in the Chive Charities trivia, we are doing this for the first time, so bear with us. If you all want to get your phones out and text the number 494-949, and all you have to do is text Chive, and that will enter you into the trivia. Today we are going to be giving away, for the best score, a Chive Charities Humanity, which some of you may have, but some of you may not have. So, and if you do have it, then you can always rack it if you end up winning. There's only going to be one winner. If everybody gets all the questions correct, then we'll just kind of pick from a hat. So, bear with us. It's our first time doing it, but this is going to be fun. After we get done with the trivia, we are going to introduce Taylor and Danielle Morris. I know a lot of the people on this call are probably familiar with that story. It's kind of one of the precursors to Chive Charities. And we certainly want to kind of retell that story here. So I'm going to talk to Danielle and Taylor. And then we're going to do something that we've never actually done before. And a lot of you have been asking us, when is the next Flash charity campaign? And at first, when this pandemic hit, we were like, all right, guys, we gotta put things on hold. There's no way that we can do, X, Y, and Z, because we had a lot of big plans going on. And, within the first few weeks, we saw that Chive Charities was not only surviving, but we were thriving. And it's just kind of a testament to the amazing donors, all of you. The fact that we've got more donors today than we had a week ago and 2 weeks ago. And we actually have more donors today than we had in the last 4 years. So we're stronger than ever, which means that we're going to be helping more people than ever. And that's just absolutely incredible. But what we're going to end up doing, and this is funny because we had a Flash Charity campaign on the docket, and all of this stuff went down, and we're like, we can't do the Flash Charity campaign because people just aren't going to have money. They're not going to be able to help. And we're seeing the opposite with Chivers. And John was supposed to get on a plane out to Missouri to meet our next recipient the day after Easter. And unfortunately, he wasn't able to do that. But you'll see what we ended up doing. And John was like, hey, listen, man, not only are we going to not delay this, we're going to move this up because Chivers are chomping at the bit to change someone's life. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to actually preview a video of our next Flash Charity recipient. So you guys are going to be the first ones to see little Henry. And stick around for the end because that's when we're going to play that video for you all. So if everybody has gone ahead and texted 494-949, again, just
Leo's here, Mom. Hey, everyone else. Leo actually exists.
Leo.
Look at that.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, John.
Oh, hi, Mom.
Hi, Mom. Miss you. Hi, guys.
Hi, Dad.
Hi, Dad. Hey, Brian. Hey, everyone else.
Hey, what's up, Leo? It's just us and 100 of our closest friends.
Yeah, this is kind of nice social distancing. Yeah.
Yeah, we should.
Go ahead. We won't interfere.
Well, cool, guys. So this is the trivia. I will, a little precursor here. If you don't text Chive to this number, you may get someone reach out to you asking you if you're okay. The technology that this was developed on is actually a mental health and mental wellness chat line, and also for veterans that are struggling and stuff like that. So it just so happens that they're letting us borrow their technology to do this trivia. It's really cool. You're going to see real-time results. So it's going to be multiple choice. We're going to be asking you certain things about Chive Charities. And all you're going to do is get into your text with 494-949, and you're going to answer A, B, C, D, E. One of the questions is open-ended. So the open-ended question, you can go in and you can kind of answer however you want to answer. I will say that some people, when they sign up, it may ask you for your age and your gender, and then you may have to opt in, which is totally fine. They're not going to do anything with your data. It's all good. We're just going to figure out who the winner of this challenge and this trivia is. So without further ado, and we'll give you a little bit of time in between questions. So we are going to go ahead and start this trivia up. First question, how many wheelchair accessible vans is Chive Charities awarded to recipients? Text A if you think it's 58, B if you think it's 99, C if it's 141, and D if it's 254. So we're gonna get a little bit of groupthink here because as people vote, you're gonna see the real-time results so we can also shame, you know, the people that got it wrong.
Oh.
And while we're doing this, I just wanted to point out the fact that back in, I think it was 2014, we bought more ADA accessible vans in 1 year than we ever have. And I'm pretty sure we bought more than any other charity. And it became the running joke that, you know, people thought that Chive Charities is kind of the Oprah of ADA accessible vans. So we put together this internal video that no one's ever seen outside of the Chive, but a clip from it kind of gives you a idea of, you know, what we're talking about. So we'll give you a little bit more time to vote. It was a huge year for Chive Charities. We've done more than we've ever done before. We raised over $2.6 million for over 40 causes. And oh yeah, we gave out a lot of ADA accessible vans. You're all getting vans! You get a van! You get a van! You get a van!
I don't know what Brad was doing, but we just have one van. I don't know what we're gonna do. People can share.
And sorry if some of the, if that was a little bit choppy. We're working with what we have here. And so it looks like we've got a bunch of votes in here. I'll give it another second. John and Leo, I'll let you guys weigh in. You guys have the insider trading. How many do you think that Chive Charities has purchased so far?
Clearly 141.
141.
All right, well, that is correct. 141 ADA accessible vehicles, most of those being wheelchair accessible vans. And on average, they cost about $43,000. And so that just shows you the impact that Chive Charities and the Chive donors have. Some of the other impact that we have: 37 service dogs, 125 renovations completed, one of which we're counting Taylor and Danielle Morris, who are on the call as well. 816 pieces of medical equipment and 21,000 impactful experiences, which is absolutely amazing. All right, if you haven't voted yet, you can still get in. Remember, it is texting CHIVE to 494-949. If you can't figure out technology, that's okay. So we are going to move on to the next question. Who was the first ever official Chive Charities grant recipient? Was it Zoe Lush, B, Taylor Morris, C, Melissa Smith, D, Seth Barrett, or E, Fluvanna County Rescue Squad? Seeing those votes pour in. I'm loving it.
This is a trick question.
Ah, Leo. Trick question. Yeah, it actually is a trick question.
I know.
Yeah, I know.
I'll say the number one vote getter is not correct so far.
What way to give it away, Brian. So here's the deal. We want you guys to vote. Don't vote C.
Well, that's most of the people have voted already, so this is going to be interesting to see if it turns the tide.
We're talking about when Chive Charities was it officially a 501c3.
Yeah.
Yes, this is an official Chive Charities grant. Yeah. So obviously John and Leo know.
No, I don't.
No, I know. I mean, do we?
I'm horrible with dates.
So Chive Charities, we incorporated back in June of 2012. We actually helped Taylor Morris in May of 2012. So obviously it's not Taylor Morris. Melissa Smith, we helped in 2013. So it wasn't Melissa Smith. Seth Barrett was actually our second recipient that we helped.
God damn it. Sorry, is Mom on? I can't take the Lord's name in
I
vain.
said, gosh damn.
Gosh darn it. Sorry, Mom.
So Fluvanna County Rescue Squad is actually one of the first stories that John wrote and we raised money for, but that was on the Chive back in 2009. And that was before Chive Charities actually existed. But that was part of the genesis of Chive Charities. Zoe Lush on December 11th, 2012 was actually the first Chive Charities recipient that we wrote a grant for. And we gave $100,000 to Zoe Lush, helped them purchase a car, we helped with the rotting surgeries, with plenty of other medical equipment for her.
How Zoe?
We're actually trying to get Zoe Lush on our next Fireside Chat, so hopefully we get that going. So anybody who guessed A, 9 of you.
I guess Seth.
I found Zoe Lush in a park and I didn't even guess her.
All right, so next up.
Yeah, Brian and I went and Brian, like we went and found Zoe Lush when they were having remember like a park day, and they were handing out pamphlets for kids with osteogenesis imperfecta because they wanted to raise awareness for osteogenesis imperfecta. And it's ironic that they were just her parents were handing out flyers, and she was just precious. She was just there on the ground, basically suffocating to death under the weight of her own body weight because her ribs couldn't support the expansion and retraction of her getting oxygen. So that was sad. But now more people know about brittle bone syndrome in the world, I think, because of Zoe Lush.
Yeah, one of the
Because of
coolest
that day,
stories-
because they probably handed out 50 pamphlets to people. One of them happened to be Brian Mercedes and John Resig, who gave that some rocket fuel. And now we should have Zoe on. She's so well spoken, such a beautiful human.
She is. One of my favorite stories about that is before you wrote that story, John, they would walk into the supermarket, and just because she's got achondroplasia, meaning she's a little bit smaller, people would talk to Zoe as if she was mentally challenged, like she was different. Mentally, she's the same as anyone else. She just has brittle bones. She's got dwarfism. And so like after that we wrote that story, you know, we heard from Chelsea, who is Zoe's mom, and she came back saying, this is amazing. Like everywhere we walk around, like people know who Zoe is. They know what
Yeah, she got famous.
Yeah.
She still is. Like, but yeah, I talked to her mom, and her mom said, you know, it went from they thought she was mentally handicapped, or she thought that people think she's being abused,
Yep.
to being a national celebrity, which goes to show you what the Chive community is capable of doing.
Absolutely. So before we go on, I did want to say that there is a chat option here within the Zoom call. We want to kind of use that as kind of a method for people to ask questions to John, to Leo, myself, to Taylor and Danielle whenever we get to them. But yeah, go ahead and type your chat, your questions in there, and Erica, who's our Director of Strategic Development, will field those and get them to us. So third question, which theme has not been used for the annual Chive Charities Green Gala? Apparently this was a slam dunk. So I wonder if most of the people on this call have been to multiple Green Galas. Again, the Green Gala, if you're new to Chive Charities, is for all of our green donors, which is 100 and above. So if you're green or the soon to be released platinum donor level, which is $200 a month and above, you will get invited to the Green Gala, which is where you get to meet everybody from the Chive, from Chive Charities, and most of the recipients.
Yeah, it really is.
And this year, the theme is supposed to be Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. You know, there's a lot of uncertainty going around right now. We're not 100%
doing it.
What's that?
We're doing it.
All I'm saying is we've got, obviously, our recipients are very immunocompromised. So, you know, we're not going to say, get your tickets right now. But as of right now, obviously the Green Gala is on, and we're just going to kind of roll with, you know, whatever comes out over the coming months. But don't buy your ticket or your plane ticket quite yet.
Buy your plane ticket.
All right. So I think, yes. So what total dollar impact threshold did Chive Charities just accomplish this week? If you've been paying attention, if you were in the Zoom call a couple of weeks ago, the Fireside Chat, you probably saw this. But is it A, 10 million, B, 12 million, C, 13 million, or D, 14 million? Well, geez. This one's another slam dunk, isn't it? Love it. All right. Well, I think people.
Herd mentality. Next time we're doing a countdown, and everyone hit go at the same time.
Yeah, because the answer is.
So the answer is 14 million. So where has that gone? We've obviously had different categories over the years of recipients that we help. So rare medical is by far the biggest category. Those are those people with the rarest of the rare. If, you know, less than 2,000 people in the world have heard of what this is, you know, obviously Chive Charities is trying to help those type of people. We've got veterans, which comes in at 16.7% of our total amount raised. First responders at 10.4%. And then this category down here, which are families of first responders or military veterans or active service. So you're looking at about a third of our total aid has gone to our heroes, the category that we talk about. That's only accelerating right now. So we're helping more heroes, more veterans, more first responders and their families than ever before. And then special education needs is 7.7. That's another category that as we talked about last Fireside Chat, we kind of focused ourselves to not have that as a category that we help, so we can help out the heroes and also the people with rare medical illnesses.
Brian, what about a recipient that wants to get like shot into space? You know, and it's just a rocket. We raise like 25 million. We take a recipient who always wanted us and we shoot them into space. Bear with me. They come back, you know, but then the pie graph one year is just like 80% rocket. and
John,
like,
the dreamer of dreams.
it's not their dream. Their dream is to be shot into space, Brian, not my dream. Moving on, I guess.
Moving on. We can make it happen. If anybody can make it, Chive Charities donors can make it happen. In 10 words or less, why do you donate to Chive Charities? So rather than doing an A, B, or C, you can go ahead and put your answer in here, and some of those answers will start to flash up on the screen, which I think is kind of cool. We'll give you a second here. And I have to approve them, so John, don't put something.
To put a recipient into space.
Oh, we're getting some good things here.
He actually wrote.
I did that before.
He did that before I said it. E.T. Elliott. Get it? Space reference.
Love this. A lot of good stuff here. First GALA video I saw in Austin. That was one of the best videos ever. And that's the cool thing. When you go to this green GALA and you see our video, there's not a dry eye in the room. And I know a lot of people on this call have actually been there and experienced the video, but it's incredible. And if you haven't been to the GALA, make sure you get there. Upgrade to that green or platinum membership. It's 100% worth it. And no, I'm not going to prove your monkey in space thing, John.
We're here to party with a purpose, man, and have fun. Put a recipient on the moon.
All right. Well, awesome. I did want to move this along. Thanks to everybody for chiming in. We're going to take those and maybe make it into a graphic and release it on social media at some point. But John, at this point, we may as well, introduce who, I guess, what everybody's here for. I mean, they're not here to look at you and me and hear us talk.
Yeah. All I can say is I remember, if you think about the way Chive Charities works and still works, you're able to triangulate certain recipients over, for example, when someone's really in need out there in America, we'll get inbound requests from multiple Chivers who tell us the stories, who are not related to each other. And in Taylor's case, I remember many different service men and women had emailed us that a soldier had been injured in an IED accident and was going to be one of the first quad amputees to ever survive. And Taylor, which one? How many had survived previous to your incident?
I was the fifth one, but here's a fun fact. 2 of them have had double arm transplants. So literally 2 arms transplanted from a cadaver. So they're only double amputees now.
They're cheating.
Yeah. And I remember thinking, oh my God, we have to find this guy and find out if he's a chiver and help him. But what we wouldn't have known then was the substance of character of this person was like second to none before the incident. And I just hopped on the phone with him finally, and I was like, man, what do you want? And he's like, I just dream of having a lodge with a tool shed where I can just go out and tinker and do my thing, and that's kind of all I want. He's like, because I've already got what I really need with his then fiance Danielle, who's oh, there's a picture of her right there. Which I thought was really sweet. The fact that I asked him, what do you want in the world? And he said, I already got it, but if I could have something else, I guess I'll take the cabin. So the story of Taylor Morris is the story where I knew he could go big. It was the first flash campaign. If you think about Fluvanna County, where we raised $35,000, I always thought that was just amazing. But when you talk about $200,000, $300,000 like Taylor Morris, that's when I realized the community was really, getting after this whole charity thing. So it really, the whole trajectory of Chive Charities was forever changed with the amount of money that came in for Taylor Morris. That was shocking. And people like a Melissa Smith wouldn't exist without a Taylor Morris, and so on and so forth. So he inspired me and inspired my brother and everyone else to think a little bigger about how the appetite for charity. And it couldn't have gone to a better person. It's like very cool to have him with us right now.
Yeah, well, welcome Taylor and Danielle. I kind of wanted to start kind of with your story, because I certainly know that there's some people here that remember your story, and we've kind of done some updates over the years. Some people may not be aware of exactly what happened to you. And you guys did you both grow up in Cedar Falls, Cedar Rapids? Cedar Falls, Iowa. And you guys were high school sweethearts, is that?
Yes.
Okay. So high school sweethearts. Taylor, when did you know that you wanted to get into active service?
I'd say ever since I was a little kid, that was on my radar, and didn't know exactly where I wanted to go or what I wanted to do, but something in the military. So ended up talking with a recruiter my junior year, and the Navy was who I thought had the best programs at that time, and that's where I decided to go.
Yeah. And from there, you became now what we know as an EOD tech with the Navy. Can you explain to everybody what that is, why you went that route, and what that kind of entails?
Yep. EOD in the Navy, every branch has EOD, and the primary responsibilities are to respond to incidents that involve high explosives or radiological or chemical and biological substances, kind of the first responders to those types of things. And obviously in Afghanistan, Iraq, it was very heavily focused on the high explosives with the IED threat, the improvised explosive devices.
That's kind of a cool way to think of it, like the first responders of the military. So you're the heroes of the heroes. Like you guys are getting out there, you're on the front lines, you're clearing the path, right?
I'm not saying that, but yeah, that's the job, is responding to those things. In addition, the Navy has the underwater responsibility. So worst case scenario, when you have any of those things underwater, which totally sucks, then the Navy does that too.
How long can you hold your breath?
We did this not too long ago. 3 minutes.
3 minutes? Man, it's impressive. Okay, so you ended up going over to Afghanistan. And how many tours did you do?
That was my first one. It was my second time in Afghanistan, but first full tour. With the Navy EOD techs, we get trained up into 2-man teams, a team member and team leader. And then you're basically trained as an attachment to go with whoever needs you the most. So whether that's in any branch. So it's not like just the Navy guys are working with the Navy. I was with the Army Special Forces at that time. But you get trained up into a 2-man team that can deploy with anybody.
Absolutely. And so where were you when the incident actually happened? And then just take us through real quick, like what exactly went down?
I was in this picture here. So this was the first place I was at. It was the village of Chinar in southern Afghanistan. Not a lot going on there. I mean,
looks like it.
Pretty desolate place. I was with that guy at the time, and one of my team members in a village that was a little bit closer to the inner city, to Kandahar, got hurt. He blew his leg off. And so I was sent to replace him. Again, there wasn't a whole lot going on here, so they want to keep the EOD guys as busy as possible and send them wherever the need is greatest. So went out to this village called Belimbai, which is in the Helmand province, and very, very dangerous place.
And so you're basically clearing the way, and so you're trying to get to the other guy who's injured, or how did that kind of go down?
What we're supposed to do is try to avoid them if we can. So when you're planning out a mission, it's consulting with whoever the team leader of the force is, working with them to plan out routes that would avoid choke points or places that historically IEDs have always been found. While you're en route, a lot of times either the dog or the EOD guy will be out front. And if you're in a super dangerous spot, you'll have your metal detector out, which is that last picture you had up there. Otherwise, you're just walking and trying to look for things that are telltale signs and indicators that somebody has planted something here. And after a while, after you go through all the training and everything, certain things really, really stick out. It's like, oh, this would be a good spot for to place a bomb, if that would be.
So the actual incident goes down, and
we had
what happened?
We had kind of a force at that time. There was 12 or 14 of us out there, and we were doing a routine combat reconnaissance patrol, which is something we did every day or every other day. And it was very, very common to get in firefights when we did this. Pretty much in this village, it was like every single time we went out, that was something you would encounter. So we started to see all the regular things that would happen before an attack. You'd see people moving around in the distance. You'd pick up some radio chatter and all that. And the guys that you had with, just everybody kind of knew, okay, it's about to go down. And we were far enough away that we knew we'd be better off kind of strong pointing out of the place we were at and finding a place to fight from rather than try to make it back to base. So my job was to clear a path and clear this building that we were going to use, and we were going to use that as the home base to fight from.
Yeah.
And so as I was up to the building,
triggering the IED, and
Yep.
IED, improvised explosive device, correct?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. And this was something that these were activated by a pressure plate. So it's kind of like a landmine, basically.
Do you know exactly what this one was made out of?
Yeah, there was 2 or 3 of them that we had found previously that week, and we were using our detectors. So we would find one and recover it and bring it back and basically do forensics on it. We'd take fingerprints and everything we could, and then we'd use those devices to train on, because obviously those are the thing that you're running into, and you want to have as much training on it as you can. The pressure plates that they were putting in these were very, very hard to detect with our detectors, and it was, no matter how we tuned them, it was always kind of we were like 50-50 whether or not you were actually picking up. And that was when you were training on it, knowing where it was.
Yeah.
Because they were also using the same detectors and tools they had, and then building the bombs. So then they would make sure that whatever they were building wouldn't set off what our guys had to detect it.
We did one night go out in town and meet a source, and he took us to a weapons cache, and they had 3 of the metal detectors that we were using. So obviously they do more than metal, but yeah, it was the same brand, same exact ones we were using.
So you got blown up by this IED, and you were conscious the whole time?
Yep.
What kind of happened in that moment? Can you tell us?
Yeah. For whatever reason, I never went unconscious. So I remember everything from a blast, hearing it, smelling it, you know, flying through the air, hitting the ground. And obviously that's, after something like that happens, it's a huge moment of chaos. I was kind of out there in the compound all by myself because that was just the procedure. You know, everybody else was pulling security around me while I did the clearing. And so from everybody else's standpoint, they heard a big blast and, you know, it's just a giant dust cloud and nobody knows what the heck is going on. And so I ended up communicating with the other EOD guy that was on the team with me, and kind of, you know, just by talking back and forth, he cleared his way up to me and then brought the medic with him, and they both started to kind of do the first round of initial combat.
Yeah. And I remember from the first conversation that John and I had with you so many years ago, I remember you saying something to the effect of, you know, when something like that happens and one of your own goes down, you know, you had people obviously following protocol, but, you know, you're a beloved brother and they're rushing to get to you as quick as possible. And you had the presence of mind to say, hey, you know what, like I haven't cleared the area. You're bleeding to death. You saw your limbs fly off with your own eyes. You're still conscious and you're able to communicate like, hey guys, clear the area before you come and rescue me, which I think is absolutely incredible. And wow.
Well, even what was especially scary for him is our detectors were tuned exactly the same. So he knows that whatever, you know, I stepped on, my detector didn't pick it up. So it was likely that his wouldn't either. So he actually threw his aside and he was just going hands-on, like scraping his fingers through the dirt. You know, and so for him and the medic that was with him, those two, that was some insane stuff there.
So you end up getting airlifted. Was it to Germany?
Yep. First I went to the local base in Kandahar. Within about a day, they did all my initial surgeries there, all the initial amputations. Then about a day later, they flew me to Longstuhl, Germany. And then about a day after that, I was in Bethesda, Maryland.
Wow.
At Walter Reed.
And Danielle, when did you were you there in Maryland? Obviously you heard this is all going down. Like what was your reaction? How did you get that news?
So one of Taylor's teammates there's about 12 people on we are stationed in Virginia Beach and there's about 12 of us. And so you just kind of become a big family. And so one of his teammates had come back early from deployment because he was having his first little girl. And so he had called me, and he is the most tender person. And I still to this day feel so bad that he had to be the one to tell me this, but he called and I was, you know, hey John, how are you doing? You know, how's the baby? You know, and he's like, good, something bad happened today. And I just thought it was never even once crossed my mind. I just thought it was phone tree. He was letting me know kind of what was going on in deployment. But then he said, there was an incident today. Again, still didn't think it was Taylor. And then he said, it was Taylor. We don't know all of the injuries, but he was conscious through all of it. And he asked me and he told me to call you and to tell you everything. Because before deployment, that was our rule. I was like, I don't want you to sugarcoat anything. I just want to know what's going on and tell me whatever you're experiencing and what you're going through, because it's harder for me to think the unknown, basically. Right. And so he said, Taylor told me to call you and tell you everything. And at the time, actually, we were not just dating. We had been dating for 8 years at the time. But in the military side of things, we weren't married or anything. So he said, I want to call and tell you everything, tell you what's going on. This is what we know so far. He lost both legs, for sure one arm, probably a hand as well. And I was back in Iowa getting my real estate license And for whatever reason that day it was the only day I've ever carpooled to work, and it was with my best friend, and she happened to be driving. And so she knew just from my demeanor on the phone, pulled over on the side of the highway and got sick, just was beside myself, obviously, after hearing the unthinkable. But like Taylor said, for whatever reason, we still say this, he lost both legs, both arms, but for whatever reason, he had no internal injuries. So he was pretty lucky in that standpoint, where he wasn't tied down to the hospital bed for very long. And so he was got hurt on a Thursday and was back in the States on Sunday. And so from each transfer, both from when he got hurt to the hospital, Afghanistan to Germany to the United States, he had to be stable enough to make each of those flights. So they would quickly do a surgery, make sure he's stable enough, and fly him on. So for those reasons, he was moving along pretty quickly. They said it'd probably be best for you to just head straight to DC or Maryland, where the hospital was at, and be there when he gets there. And so myself and then his mom and dad flew from Iowa to DC, and we were there by the time he arrived.
Wow.
Oh my God. My armpits are sweating. I didn't know all of that story, and that just blows my mind. Danielle, so you were, that brings us to Sunday. When was the first time that you saw him? Like, what were you thinking? What do you remember?
So I still, for whatever reason, those first 3 days were the worst, Thursday through Sunday. And just not being there, not being able to, just waiting for the next update, basically. But the whole time I was thinking, I didn't know how I was going to react. I didn't know if I was going to want to turn around and run, if I was going to break down into tears, if I was going to get sick when I first saw him. And I just kept thinking, trying to picture what I knew of Taylor in my head, now missing limbs. On the plane, those 3 days, I just kept trying to replay that in my head to just see how I would react. And for whatever reason, when I walked into the hospital room, he had 1,000,001 tubes coming out of every orifice in his body, bandages everywhere. I mean, it was just, I don't know why, but I looked straight at him and our eyes connected. This sounds super cheesy, but for whatever reason, it was this overwhelming feeling of assurance. And I just walked over to him and I was like, oh, like it was no big deal. I was like, oh, we got this. We got this. And I think it was just that I could tell from looking at him that he was still Taylor. Because that was honestly, when he deployed, my biggest fear was not him getting hurt. I didn't even think about that. It was like him coming back with not being the same Taylor that I grew up with, that I knew, that I loved. And just, again, I think it was just the clarity in his eyes. Still, he's on tons of drugs at this point in the hospital, so he's not really probably that clear, but I could just tell that he was Taylor through and through.
Oh my God.
Wow. It just sounds like you guys have such an incredible connection, and that never went away. And I love that. And one of the cool things that I saw is just kind of like and Tim Dodd, we should give him a shout out. He helped document a lot of this process. And I can only imagine the rehab that you had to go through. And it's just so cool. Like, not only is there a look of determination on your face, Taylor, but Danielle, you're also like right there with him the whole time, never leaving his side, just kind of working together. So how long did that process take? How long were you guys kind of rehabbing? When did you finally get to go back home to Iowa?
I think within 2 weeks, I was trying on my first prosthetics.
Wow.
Maybe a month and a half into it is when we were down here in the physical therapy, starting all the physical and occupational therapy. And it ended up taking about 2 years to get out of the Navy. It's a lot harder to get out than it is to go in. That's what I'd say.
They like their paperwork.
Yep. It was 2014 when we left Walter Reed.
2014.
This was not a look of determination either. I feel like I was the only one who didn't want the process documented, and they were constantly taking pictures, Tim Dodd and my mom and everybody, and that was me saying, like, get the hell out of my face.
Well, I'm glad they did, because it's so inspiring, and that kind of leads us to meeting, or I guess John touched on it earlier. We got dozens of emails from people in the Navy, just not only the Navy, like just everybody saying, "Oh my gosh, you have to read this story. You have to connect with this guy." And it's like, okay, cool. Like, does anyone actually have a connection to Taylor so we can talk to him? And then we finally did talk, and kind of, John gets your story, writes the story, puts it up on the Chive. And I think that was the first story that propelled Chive Charities, or what would become Chive Charities, into like, oh my gosh, this is huge. There's this Chive community. When we ask, and I can't remember, what did we ask John for, like $50,000? I think it was $50,000 for a down payment on, on a Iowa lake house. And Chivers came in spades and said, "Hey, no, let's just buy the whole thing." John, do you remember what was kind of going through your head when, you hit that publish button, or just kind of putting that story together?
No, because I don't think about the gravity of the situation when I'm writing it. I just get nervous that I'm going to screw it up and not do it justice. So I like, that whole thing is like a fugue state to me. What I honestly remember the most, I've never got to ask Taylor this, was like, do you remember those like Google year in review things that they do every year?
Yeah.
And everyone watches them. They used to be so good. And if you look at like the 2012 or 13 year in review, I remember that they take the top like 100 most inspiring stories and I pack them into this one beautiful song. And that's when I remember that. And you saw Taylor with the waves to the camera. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
That's what I remember. Like, we had such an impact with that story, and Taylor's story had such an impact on the world that, it made one of the top 100 most inspiring stories in the world that year. Which it should have. It should have made it, That's when I was like, man, like, Taylor really inspired a lot of people. But at the time, I just get nervous because I'm like, perennially just think I'm going to fuck it up.
Hey, John, if I could chime in, your nervousness when it comes to that is when I think you always wrote very real, and your passion shows with your nervousness, man. So don't ever stop writing that way.
Yeah, I don't like it. I'm like, I think I'm just a screw up.
Right. It's uncomfortable, but it's the real you. So don't change that, because you tell the real story when you do it.
Yeah. Well, I always think my English professor is going to give me another B-. And I'm just like, I was at least a B+.
Oh, Miss Jackson?
Oh, Miss Jackson gave me A's. She saw something in me. I love it.
And I can confirm that, when John writes one of these stories, it's, okay, John, are we going to get it up by 11? Because that's like the goal every single time. And John's like, yeah, we're good. Like the night before, that's when the calls start coming. I'm sure like Taylor and Danielle were getting last second texts and stuff like that. Like
Danielle was, for sure.
And we hit that publish button, and then John is kind of a pacer, a nervous pacer. And we like to put the GoFundMe campaign up on the screen, and John will yell at anybody who refreshes it too much. He's like, "No, can't watch. Like, don't watch the pot boil."
Watch pot never boils. Yeah, and the first 15 minutes is always the worst because it takes 10 or 15 minutes. So no donations come through for the first like 10 or 15 minutes. So my fear of failure always turns into the certainty that we're gonna fail in the first 15 minutes. So not a pleasant person to be around. Brian's a really stable person, which helps. I'm really not.
One more thing on that, John, that you may not have seen is that brought a lot of awareness to everybody else that was at the hospital too. Everybody else's pages started seeing more things. You know, maybe this was like the quote mainstream story, but there was a bunch of side streams off of that got a whole bunch of awareness just from that.
That's incredible. I never knew that.
Yeah, I didn't know that either.
Yeah, and for a long time, I we worked closely with GoFundMe because they were fledgling back then, and they're like, we've actually, you know what? I don't think we did use GoFundMe for yours. I think GoFundMe was
PayPal, I think.
It was PayPal. Yeah. Okay. Never mind. But with like the Melissa Smith and some of our subsequent Flash Charity campaigns, they were like, we've never seen anything like this. Like, what in the world are you guys doing? What kind of community is this? But just the fact that, you look at these updates at the bottom of the story, within a couple of hours, you got 60,000, then 100,000. And then,
wow,
days later, you're looking at $250,000. So much so that I believe, Taylor, you say something like you started your own foundation as a result of everything that was brought in.
We did. We carried this forward in a couple of different ways. I'll let Danielle talk about the Glow 5K.
So one of them is we both, from being at the hospital, I will say that this, first I want to say that this, just the campaign and how much it raised, we obviously had no idea that it was going to get so big so quick and whatnot, but this was probably 2 weeks of us being, after 2 weeks post-injury. And so what it really gave us too, besides just the money and the help getting settled back home, was the peace of mind to be able to really pour everything into the rehab. So we didn't have to think about how we were going to make it once we got home, or how we were going to find a house, find a vehicle, things like that we knew we were going to have to adapt our lives to. So that was another huge, just again, side stream or benefit of everything that happened. But yeah, so when we were at the hospital, both the Chive and then our community, or just our community around here, everyone just rallied together to help. And we were really inspired by that when we got back home, we did the Glow Stick 5K.
Wow.
Which essentially anyone can nominate someone that they find inspiring, or an inspiring story, or someone who may just need help, who's kind of down and out in their luck right at the moment. And then the community votes on what story they find most inspiring. And then at the end of the night, we give away 100% of the proceeds from the raise. So we've done that since we moved back, and we moved back to Iowa in 2014. So we've been doing that every year since. This year, again, it's up in the air with the whole COVID thing, but we obviously, now is more important than ever to give back. So we definitely want to continue doing that.
I think that's so amazing. The thing that we see time and time again with our recipients is, Chive Charities helps out the recipient going in, and then we kind of punt it out to the Chive community at large with these campaigns, and they take it and they Hulk smash the goal. And then you see these recipients of these incredible, just this incredible goodwill. They want to pay it forward. They want to be the person that inspires more and gives to the next person. And then it's just this ripple effect, and that turns into a wave. And, to hear, Taylor, how, that story kind of touched so many other, people's lives and helps raise funds for them and change their lives, that just warms my heart. And I love hearing that. So
it is true, because even at our Glow Stick 5K, we'll get on the stage, hand them a check for $10,000. You were the winner. Here's your money, no strings attached. And every single year, we've had the person who has won say, I want to give a couple thousand to the second place person. Or we've had a year that he said, I just want to split this amongst all the nominees. So though every single person has turned around and which is not required, not anything, but they just immediately turn around and give back this money that was given to them that they need at the time. And again, it just shows why they were.
That's incredible. Well, I do want to, because we are coming up on an hour here, wanted to get into a little bit of like, what has life been for you guys since? At the time, you guys were you were engaged, I believe, and then eventually, obviously, you guys got married. Was that back in 2015?
2015.
2015. Again, Tim Dodd. Everybody should follow him on Instagram, the Everyday Astronaut. He's awesome. Yes. Just takes incredible photos, and I just love the joy in your faces here. What an incredible day, huh?
Oh yeah.
And I think, you know, for years it was like you guys didn't know really how things were going to shake out. Obviously, you know, the Chive community had raised all this money, and it was like, we're going to build the house, but it wasn't like you guys were going to go out the next day or the next month or even the next year and start building a house, right?
Right. Yeah, it was probably 6 years after, by the time we had gotten to it. We were in a unique situation and took a very long time to close on the land. But it gave us, like, during that time, when you're in the hospital bed and you got so many different questions, you know, how am I going to do this? How am I going to do that? It just, like, took care of a huge chunk of the future for you. Like, hey, don't worry about this, you know, and allowed you to focus on, like, the recovery, which was most important at that time. So you didn't feel like you had to rush through it. Didn't feel like you had to get out of there early to go back to work and all that. So that was huge. Just the reassurance.
And so when did you guys end up moving into the house?
We moved in 2017.
End of 17.
Yeah.
Maybe.
I think.
Awesome.
Spring of 17.
Oh, I just gave something away there. And since then, so obviously, Danielle, you've been kind of crushing it on the real estate side of things. And Taylor, I know you've been working with some prosthetics companies and kind of directing some things there. Can you guys talk a little bit about some of those initiatives you guys have been doing?
Yep. One thing I did when I got back, I enrolled back in school to finish out the bachelor's degree. While I was doing that, started a nonprofit makerspace, which, if you guys aren't familiar with the concept of a makerspace, it's a membership-based thing, kind of like a gym, where you pay a monthly membership fee and you have access to gym equipment. But at the makerspace, you have access to tools and equipment. So we have a full wood shop, full metal shop, 3D printers, laser cutter, CNC equipment. We've made over 5,000 cloth COVID masks so far. We just raised the money that we needed for another 5,000, and that's all volunteers doing it. Just like the Chive community, it's like they are totally rallying right now in the time of need, and we've got more people volunteering to do stuff than we can go to work. So that's been really fun.
And did want to touch on this because this is something somewhat recent, but cause for celebration. Congrats, guys. Got a little girl on the way.
We
Yeah!
did. Funny story. My aunt called me and said she was telling me how much she loved the wallpaper we put in the room. I just love it. I love it. I love it. Then she's like, so have you found out if you're having a girl or a boy yet? I was like, yep.
Spoiler alert. Yeah.
We are having a girl. Oh, wow. But yes, August 10th is the due date.
It needs a little chive green in there somewhere. Just a pinch. A pillow, a blanket, something, John.
A splash, just a splash. A shock of green, if you don't mind.
Yeah, a BFM onesie, something.
Congrats, guys.
Jen, you got that right.
Hey, no, I want to show my deep appreciation for Jen Hallam having said nothing during this whole like, because it means a lot to me to not hear her voice.
So I don't have to get you a Christmas.
No, don't ruin it. Don't ruin it now.
It's done. Sorry.
Brian, I will tell you, I know you're the voice of Chive Charities, but since you moved, man, she's been your torch holder at the headquarters, man.
Yeah,
Not gonna lie.
Not there.
Great. Well, the last thing here, obviously, we do want to get to the preview video for our Flash Charity campaign, which is going live next Wednesday. But before that, I know that there have been some questions here. One person wanted to know, John, what beer are you drinking? And are you ever going to come back with a beer line?
As a matter of fact, I'll show everybody right now. I'm drinking the Live Oak Half, and then I'll take you to my brother's office to show you what we're working on now. So it's a really good question. And
Taylor, you guys registered anywhere?
I can't, I will tell you, we'll release all that next week, but they're all coming back, baby. They're all coming back. The gold, the wheat, and the KCCO. So yeah, we're back with the beer soon. And it was a really good science experiment and quite successful, but we realized we didn't know what we were doing. But now that we do, we're not just going to bring one back, we're going to bring them all back. So
When do they come back out?
What now?
When do they come back out?
We're making the announcement officially outside this forum like next week, but it is in tandem with another announcement about the Chive headquarters that I just can't say anything about.
I just want to know if I can pack it in my overnight stay for the hospital bag. A 6-pack.
Yeah, absolutely,
Okay.
Danielle. You can stash. You can stash.
That's awesome. Well, without further ado, and sorry for the slower internet. Hopefully this isn't choppy. We tested this before, but we are going to preview Little Henry's video here. Again, John was supposed to head out to Missouri, but seeing as, you know, things are the way they are right now, he wasn't able to make it out there. But you know what? I think there's a story just behind that, and the fact that, you know, I think the Chive community, all of you on this call, are going to come through in spades for Little Henry. So again,
What's the launch date? Is it May 6th?
May 6th. Wednesday.
May 6th, everyone tune into the Chive. This is the first look at something super special that we've been working on for a long time.
And here we go.
What's his name, mister? What's his name? His name is Henry.
Henry was born with congenital limb difference. His arm is cut off at the elbow and his legs are cut off at the knee. But as you're about to see, that has not stopped this 4-year-old one thing.
Buddy, right.
One of the things that struck me when we were going through the review process was that Henry was so adamant about doing everything himself and being independent that he was using his head to get up on the toilet.
Yes, he does. He has and he uses it as his own little device to help him get up on things. Can you hop up on the toilet? Yeah. So he wheels his little truck into the bathroom and he sets the steps in his face to get up. So he can go potty because he wants to do it for himself. Good job, buddy. I guess he usually doesn't have his pants on. Hi, buddy.
So that's it, guys. Next Wednesday, tune into the Chive. We'll be releasing that story. And I guess nothing else is to be done other than kind of cheers to everybody. Thanks for joining.
Hey, congratulations, Taylor and Danielle.
Congrats.
Thanks for having us.
To Taylor and Danielle, to Henry next week, and to all of you guys for making the world 10% happier.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, Brian. This was great. Good work, man.
Thanks, Brian.
Thanks. Again.
Cheers.
Cheers, yo.
Cheers.